Reasons for the PD is the minimum. It's okay. One of the one of the main reasons for the plan development request is to accommodate some smaller areas. The minimum area requirement or acreage requirement for the multifamily 1 zoning district is 10 acres. The applicant would like to individually plat 13 lots, which equal about 18,000 square feet, give or take. That does not meet 10 acres. So this is one of the deviations that they are requesting. They are proposing to develop 13 12-plexes. Their total unit count is about 141, in addition to providing adequate access from South Eisenhower Parkway. And if you can kind of tell to the south, there's an opening to go for the road to continue south through a future single-family residential development, and that'll provide a second access to South Fannin Avenue. In addition to providing adequate access, they are also proposing 30% of the total acreage to be devoted to open space, and they are also providing a pool, playground equipment, and several sidewalks to accommodate trails and accessibility to those open spaces, sorry. There is a deviation listed within the PD, and it's also listed in my staff report for a minimum side yard setback. They are proposing a side yard setback of 4 feet for an interior yard and 5 feet from a street right-of-way line for a structure located adjacent to a public right-of-way. Staff feels as if that's a little too close. The ordinance kind of has 2 different requirements. It requires that any structure that is adjacent to a public right-of-way, that side yard is considered a front yard, making that a minimum setback of 25 feet. It also says that any structure located adjacent to a public right-of-way has to have a minimum side yard of 20 feet. So staff recommended a larger side yard setback than the 5 feet. We asked for 15, and there are, in the site plan, there are some areas where that side yard is 13. And staff is happy to accommodate a deviation between 13 and 15, but 5 is a little close. And the applicant may be able to speak more on that whenever they come up to speak. Outside of that deviation, staff is recommending approval of the request. It complies with the comprehensive plan, and I'm present for any questions that you may have.
Are there any floodplain issues with this property?
Not that I'm aware of.
I've got a concern about the setback.
Yes, sir.
Even on the interior lots. Can I ask a question of a staff member in the audience?
Yes, sir.
Clarify?
Yes, sir.
Mr. Kern's back there. Are we gonna get into some trouble if we've only got 8 feet between houses? Isn't that a fire code violation as well?
Yeah, so fire code, you need at least 10-foot structures, and that's just so if an adjacent structure is on fire, it doesn't jump over to the structure next to it. So yeah, there's a 10-foot setback in the code for.
Okay.
I do believe that
Because
these.
if we've got 8 feet between the 2 foundations, we'll have less than that when we figure the distance between overhangs.
I do believe that these structures will be fully sprinkled. I don't know if that makes a difference.
That will make a difference.
There are accommodations where if they're within that 10-foot, they just have to build differently in order to accommodate that distance, but they can't be more than 5 feet.
And isn't there, doesn't it prohibit windows in that wall if it's less than 5 feet from the property line?
I believe there's a surface area, I think it's 25% they can have in the windows, but there are some more accommodations they'll have to make to put a window in that wall, yes.
Okay, all right. Okay, thank you, Kurt. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, sir, I was done. I just
Okay.
wanted to make sure I made you aware that they'll be fully sprinkled.
Okay, all right. All right, is the applicant here this morning? Would you state your name and address for the record, please?
My name is Naveen Kamampati. I'm with Turnkey Tract. I'm at 2770 Main Street, Frisco, Texas, 75033.
Okay.
I would like to point out that the current zoning for this project is multifamily one. So by the right, would be able to do these proposed buildings as per the current zoning. The only reason that we would like to go for a PD is to plot these individually so that, we can phase the project better in case we'd like to do some of them in the first phase and then in case we wanted to. So that's the only main reason that we're going with a plan development. And this also gives an opportunity, for the staff to provide their comments and also see what type of product that we are using ahead of the time, even before, we go for construction plans. And regarding the distance between the buildings, I think when we have less than 10 feet, we can use a fireproof material for the walls and can accommodate, for any fire prevention. In each of these buildings will have sprinkler systems.
Any questions of the applicant? Thank you, sir. We may have something come up.
Thank you. Thank you.
Is there anyone else here to speak in favor of this request? Anyone here to speak in opposition to this request? Okay, I'm going to close the public hearing. We'll have discussion among the commission. I have a little bit of trouble with setbacks. I'm a little concerned about setbacks on this. I mean, I'm looking at 4-foot side setback and I'm looking at a 4.5-foot rear setback. Is that correct?
Minimum rear is 4, minimum side is proposed. Minimum side is 4 for an interior yard and 5 for an adjacent. Or
And then
for
the
those that are
rear yard?
adjacent.
The rear yard is showing 4.5 feet?
4 is what the actual development standards call out.
Okay.
Are we approving the site plan today? I mean, or is that, or are we just,
Well, we kind of are
looking
because the site plan is a
rezoning.
part of the PD.
but then it's
It,
part of the
concept
plan?
plan, I'm sorry, it's just a concept
Yeah,
plan.
it's a concept plan, but it is part of the PD.
Yes,
Will
sir.
it have to come back for further
Site plan
approval?
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
Yes, this, it not only will have to do a preliminary plat, civil engineering plans, but because this is located within a planned development, when these structures are to be built, a site plan has to be submitted to the planning office, and then your approval is necessary per the ordinance.
Yep.
Or required, not necessary.
Yep.
But if the side yard, or these deviations that are listed within this plan development, if they are approved today, that site plan must meet the minimum requirements of the plan development.
So I agree, I think that setbacks are concerning.
Yeah. I'm more concerned about the side setbacks, I think. Can the applicant come back to lectern? I know we're very preliminary in this process at this point. Would you be opposed to us asking for 5-foot setbacks on the side versus the 4?
we will definitely, look into the site plan and see if we can modify that to 5-foot setback. So you're
Yeah,
saying,
but that, and that's the reason why I'm saying we're very preliminary in this, but if we vote today and we change it from 4 to 5, then you're gonna have to stay with 5. So your planning will have to be such that your buildings will have to be laid out to where they can accommodate the 5-foot setbacks. Are you comfortable with that today?
let me check with the owner and, Mike, are you okay with 5-foot setbacks, side setbacks, or instead of 8 foot, we're gonna have 10 feet in between the buildings?
I understand that.
Sir, would you mind coming up to the podium?
Yeah, that's it. Name and address, please.
My name is Michael Todd, and I live at 1510 California in Gainesville.
Okay.
The only question that I have is what it might do to change the overall module. What we tried to do with this whole concept was address an early request when we had, when we met with the city, and to try to come up with something that was less linear, less barracks looking, as many townhouse projects quite commonly are. And so we've developed this product, and we've adjusted it in a way so that it achieves the density that the land allows. So my only question is in the layout of the modules, might that cost us any units?
Units, and also maybe the unit will be little lesser if, let's say, if you want to keep the same number of units. Ultimately, we have to look at it, but ultimately the lower number of units are the actual square footage of the unit, maybe 1 foot lesser. You're gonna be reducing the building
Yeah,
by 1 foot.
I can probably live with that.
So you could redesign your,
Probably, yeah.
I mean, obviously, are you telling me this morning that your buildings are already designed?
Well, they're well under, yeah, they're well in the process,
Okay,
yeah.
but we're in a preliminary state to where you could go back in and take out.
There may be something that I can either modify or
Okay,
make work.
okay, all right,
Mhm.
thank you.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Any other discussion this morning?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make,
Hang on one second, were you about to say something, Diane?
No, I think before, is this recommendation that I'm anticipating, is it going to involve just the side yard for for the structures, whether they're adjacent to public right-of-way or adjacent to
No, we're gonna
structures?
talk about, we need to
Oh.
talk about the.
Okay, I just want to
right-of-way
make
side,
sure
too.
whatever recommendation
Yeah.
you make goes before council
Right,
correctly.
Right. When we, in the overlay, when we went back, did we take that side yard to 15, or did we take it to 10 in the overlay?
Are you talking about the highway overlay?
No.
The infill overlay?
And when we
It was
redid
to
the-
10.
Okay, so, because in the overlay that
For-
we
for-
had, it was 5, and then it
For-
went back to the SF5 zoning, and then we revised that, correct?
So for SF5, for lots that were 50 foot or lower in the SF5 zoning district, you were allowed a 10-foot side yard setback. And then there was some reprieve for garages as well.
Yeah.
But the ordinance does call for a 15 side yard
Okay.
setback.
Can we go
Now,
back to
this
the,
particular ordinance
can
calls
you
for
go back to
20.
the site plan?
Yes, sir. Now, the MF1 zoning district calls for a 20-foot side yard setback for, like I said, it conflicts itself a little bit. It either calls for a 25-foot side yard setback for those structures that are adjacent to public right-of-way or a 20-foot. During review for the document or for the application, staff made a recommendation of 15. Some of these, especially that one, the structure that's in the northwest corner, I think it has like a side a side yard setback of 13, and it's accommodating a sidewalk as well. I don't see any harm in something like that. I just want to make sure, staff wants to make sure that there is appropriate visibility and that it's not hindering pedestrian or anybody that's driving.
I mean, I kind of see this as basically kind of the same thing that we've done in the infield, personally. So, I mean, I'm not opposed to the 10-foot setback, actually, on something like
Okay.
this.
For those structures that are adjacent to public right-of-way,
Yeah,
correct?
right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, some are adjacent to parking.
Yeah, it just looks
don't-
like we just, you know, and the thing about it is, this entrance that's coming, this is mainly gonna be just for this development, so it's not like a high-traffic street that's,
Turn my mic off, sorry. It's possible. Remember, there is a second point of access going south between Lot 4 and Lot 5 on the southern portion of the property, and that will go to a single-family development that we have a preliminary plat on. I don't remember how many lots that is off the top of my head,
yeah.
but it's possible.
I think what I was getting
47?
at is the number of trips
47
per day
lots.
coming in here are just for residents mainly.
Right.
So it's not like, and I'm alluding to the pedestrian walkways. I think if the traffic count were higher and it was a public street that was really traveled, then we would probably want to pull the setback so that it was a little safer. But in this particular case, I'm pretty comfortable with it. I mean, so I don't have a problem with decreasing that setback along there. I think 15's excessive,
Okay.
so.
So we're looking at 10 on the setback.
Well, that would be up to
Yeah.
the commission as to what they wanted to do.
And there's precedent of doing that in others, you mentioned on the other infield projects?
Only in the infield. Anything else, guys?
I'm just trying to
I'll
figure
entertain
out
a
how to
motion
put
then.
that in the form of a motion. What about the side?
I think side setback should be changed to 5 foot.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to recommend approval of the subject property being rezoned to a planned development overlay district to allow for multifamily use with stipulation of a 5-foot side and a 10-foot setback.
10 foot adjacent to.
Side yard for those structures adjacent to public right-of-way. Yes.
I second that motion.
Okay, the motion second. We good with that motion, ladies?
Yes, sir.
Okay. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Moving on to item 4B.
Item 4B, receive a report, hold a discussion, conduct a public hearing, and make a recommendation on a request for approval of a conditional use permit within the commercial zoning district to allow for a distribution center for property located at 307 West Coffin Street, case number 2023-116 CUP. This is an aerial view of that subject property, 307 West Coffin Street. You may remember it as the Health Trends. I think it's been vacant for several years now. It's zoned commercial. It's surrounded predominantly by local retail, office, zoning districts. There is some residential to the north and to the west. However, as you can tell from this aerial view, those parcels have not been developed, and neither has the northern portion of this property. The applicant is seeking for a conditional use permit to allow for a distribution center. The operation is Testa Labs, and what they do is they produce over-the-counter medications such as gripe water and herbal supplements, and they would like to utilize the existing structure for mixing ingredients, packaging ingredients, and storage of the products, as well as distributing those products to retailers. No actual production of the ingredients will take place on site. Their proposed hours of operation are Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m., with box trucks running on a weekly or bi-weekly basis. And given the access to, or the proximity, excuse me, to Austin Avenue, South Eisenhower Parkway, Spur 503, staff does not anticipate any traffic impacts to the residential areas to the west. I'm sorry. The comprehensive plan or the future land use plan calls for this area to be developed in a mixed commercial manner. And for that reason, as well as the minimal traffic impacts to the residential areas, staff does recommend approval of this request. And I'm present for any questions you may have.
Okay, any questions of staff?
I apologize. I forgot to mention that they do plan on improving the parking, striping the parking, as well as providing landscaping along that frontage on West Coffin Street. And I don't know if there's any improvements going to be done to the outside of the building. I know that they are going to do a remodel on the inside to accommodate their operations, but they are going to do some landscaping on the frontage of Coffin Street.
Okay. All right, is the applicant here this morning? No. Okay. All right, any particular reason why the applicant's not here?
I'm not sure. We called him last week and made him aware that this was going to be presented.
Okay. All right, anyone else here to speak on behalf of this request, either for or against? Okay, seeing then, I'll close the public hearing, and, any discussion? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move to recommend approval of a conditional use permit to allow for the use of a distribution center for the property located at 307 West Coffin Street.
Have a
Second.
motion,
I second that.
have a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion carries. Item 4C.
Item 4C, receive a report, hold a discussion, conduct a public hearing, and make a recommendation on a request to amend the current Plan Development Overlay District within the Highway Overlay District consisting of approximately 28.4 acres to a Plan Development District within the Highway Overlay District to allow for commercial, single-family townhome, two-family, and multifamily residential uses for property located on the east side of US 75 south of Crawford Street, commonly known as 3400 West Crawford Street. Case number 2023-118 PD. This is an aerial view of that subject property. That's Independent Bank to the north, just so you have an idea of where this property is located. A couple of years ago, probably in 2021, I believe, this property came through for a planned development to accommodate duplex-type structures on the east side of the property and commercial uses on the west. It was at the time, the development was known as Westlake Midtown. Those same developers have come through to amend that PD to allow for an expansion of residential uses and to kind of hone in on what commercial uses are not allowed on the west side of the property, and then to allow for apartment structures on that side. As I mentioned, it's already currently zone plan development. The proposed new plan development dissects the property into two tracts, with tract 1 accommodating mixed residential uses and tract 2 being the commercial multifamily flex tract. Tract 1, bear with me, I want to make sure that I am as transparent as I can be on those uses that are allowed there. The applicant has not specifically stated what areas will accommodate which residential tract, or what their proposed number of units are for these residential uses. However, the development standards listed within the PD provided staff with enough comfort, I guess, to move forward with this, with recommendation for approval on this, given that the residential uses are located within a residential area that exists. And those uses include single-family detached to be retained for rental purposes, duplex structures, townhome, single-family attached, and the same as single-family detached, single-family townhomes retained for rental purposes. There are development standards listed within the PD that deviate from the base zoning districts of SF5, multifamily 1, two-family duplex, and single-family townhome. The multifamily 1 district, just so it's clear, that would be utilized for the property that's retained as rental property. Two-family duplex would be those that they intend to plat individually and sell for duplexes. And then the townhome ordinance would be the base zoning for all townhome, single-family to be sold or to retain for rental property. I have in my staff report deviations that staff felt was significant enough to pull out. All of the deviations are listed within the plan development document that was a part of the agenda. I will say that some of the significant standards that are for the residential tract, the facade of each single-family detached and duplex units shall not be repeated for at least 3 structures in a row. Units retained for rental property will be a mix of 2 and 3 bedroom units. A property owners association will be responsible for maintaining all perimeter fencing, open space, any private infrastructure that may exist within the development. Should be noted that at the time of preliminary plat, these residential uses will have to be more honed in. We'll have to see them itemized or depicted on the preliminary plat, and that preliminary plat will come before the commission for approval. Additionally, site plan approvals for any of the structures within the multifamily tract, the single-family tract, the single-family attached or the townhome tract will also have to come before the commission for approval. Tract 2 is a little bit easier to explain. It's commercial or garden-style apartments or typical apartments that you would see. There are some uses that the applicant is prohibiting on the commercial side, and that includes mini warehouse self-storage, auto dealer, new or used, auto repair, major or minor, car wash, pawn shop, trailer rental, RV sales, and single-family attached or detached. So no actual single family will be constructed in Tract 2. There is a maximum number of units for the proposed apartments in Tract 2, and that maximum number of units is 400. They have a minimum area and a maximum area from 2 to 10 acres that they plan to accommodate for that apartment on Tract 2. And it's my understanding, it's not depicted here, and I'm not sure if it's written into the standards that I recall, but that apartment unit will not be fronting on US 75. Our comp plan doesn't prohibit, it recommends that apartment units not be located adjacent to a major thoroughfare unless completely mixed with a mixed use development, which staff feels that this development is mixed use. However, it was a recommendation to the applicant that apartment complex stay more in the southeast portion of that tract to create a buffer from the residential tracts and to not have it completely fronting on US 75. Because this is within the highway overlay, there are masonry standards for structures that are located within that highway overlay of 100%. The applicant is proposing that all main structures shall have exterior materials having at least 75% be constructed of masonry rather than the 100%. All landscaping for this structure or for this tract will resort back to the zoning ordinance as well as screening. And they also will have a property owners association maintain any open space, any private infrastructure. I will say that the PD does provide a minimum of 5 acres of open space for both tracts to utilize. And the multifamily tract within Tract 2 will provide a pool for their residents. However, in Tract 1, that amenity is not required per the plan development ordinance. That's a lot. This does comply with the comprehensive plan, or the future land use plan as well. And I'm present to answer any questions that you may have or clarify any of the standards that were presented.
Could you clarify the masonry requirement again? You said they are requesting an exception on that?
They are, yes, sir. 75% rather than the 100%. I will also state that they are requesting that flat roofs be allowed as well. I think there is a requirement within the highway overlay for a certain pitch height, so.
Any other questions of staff? Okay. Is the applicant here?
Hello, I'm Forrest Poole, 5495 Beltline Road, Suite 380 in Dallas, Texas, 75254. Well, my address is in Dallas. I am a Denison boy. I grew up here and still have a lot of family and ties to this town. And I guess I'll just start out by saying the the existing PD that we're under allows for what we were planning on doing, which was commercial kind of strip frontage along 75 and then a dense kind of duplex townhome style development behind that. And we've been in, I think this is about 4 years, we've been in the process on this one. There's been a few delays for different reasons. The most recent was for the sewer line that we were waiting on to be able to tie into. And while we're in that delay, we took a step back and looked at the project and went and we met with some different groups and said, is there any way we can make this a little more interesting, not just kind of your typical, commercial with residential packed in behind it. And what we came up with was, I'll say, a much more interesting program for this, but it does require the multifamily to get the residential density that we need to make the project feasible, right? And so what that does is it actually creates, we don't have to spread out residential across the entire site. We can create all these really unique open spaces, and it allows for that corner of 75 and Crawford to become a really cool retail restaurant type feature that I think is going to be really unique and awesome to what I consider one of the critical intersections in the city of Denison on Highway 75. Without being able to do the multifamily in the way we're doing it, you really don't have the ability to do that and create those open spaces. So, yeah, I'm excited about the way that laid out. One of the other challenges that we gave our land planners who are working through this is how do we integrate with the existing residents that are along Lillis? I know several of them, and we got a chance to meet and talk with them as we were in this process. And one of the things that we've been consistent with is what you'll see as we're building this out over time. The plan is on the far east side to match similar type residential to the residential on Lillis, and so their back fence would share with something similar to what they have. And then as you work out towards the highway, you're going to get more. You'll get to maybe your duplexes, then your townhomes, then your multifamily, family and commercial. And that way, it's what I understand that nobody likes change when you have a woods behind you right now. But if you're going to do something, I think this is a very well thought out plan on how it could be laid out and really integrated in with the neighbors. The other thing is this is not an easy site. I don't know if I'm sure everybody's driven by it, but we're on a big hill, and we've got a floodplain running through the north side. And so it's really, for our engineers, it's fun, but for us, it's not an easy site. And so what we're working through is trying to really work out how do we utilize that floodplain, make it a feature of the property to where we can put some restaurants along there, have like patio-style restaurants along that floodplain, and then what this adding in the multifamily and these other features to it really allows us to do that and expand on the use of that floodplain. The other thing it does is it lets us, so we are about, there's one property between us and the city's land on Waterloo Lake that's just east of here. And one of the other things we're looking at, on what we're looking at now, we're about 2.5 miles of trails through our development is what we're looking at doing. And then, you know, someday hopefully we can connect to what the city has, which is 7.5 plus trails, and then you add the Katy Trail system onto it. And the idea is this is just a really cool, outdoor, unique development in the city of Denison that I think is going to be a real feature. So I'm here to answer any easy questions. I brought my civil engineers from Kinley Horn to answer the hard ones, and just thank you guys for your time.
Any questions of the applicant? Surely y'all have something.
So have you guys already done preliminary designs of how you're gonna deal with the whole floodplain?
Yes, sir. Yeah, we've got some ideas. Nothing's set in stone yet. I mean, obviously, there's a lot to work through. But the idea is, if you see where the little notch is on top of this site, so we own that other corner, or we don't own. We have relationship as far as common ownership to the development on that corner of Lillis and Crawford. And so the idea would be you put in an entrance coming off that far east Independent Bank entrance. So you basically, we're not trying to have cross access all the way down the frontage, which is what the initial plan was. We're moving that entrance to the center of the property, and that way it really activates that floodplain. And so to the east of that entrance, we're thinking maybe like a trailhead for, you know, public use, that they could come in and park, get on your mountain bike, and you can ride, and maybe ride all the way to Waterloo Lake, and then come back and have dinner at one of the restaurants. So basically the idea is along that floodplain, we're going to avoid the floodplain as far as the development goes, but have it where it can be usable for the restaurants and retail along that area.
I'm sorry, Mr. Poole, I think Crawford is probably at this point right now, I think our nicest artery coming into downtown. And seeing what we're doing downtown and with the, you know, the renovation and redevelopment, how would your development work as far as being cohesive with what we're doing downtown, the architecture that you're thinking about using? If you have plans and can kind of tie the two together with this development?
Sure. So one, I agree, our downtown's fantastic. Growing up here, I remember driving downtown and there wasn't a car, driving past here, and it's just crazy to me now that you drive through and there's not a spot to park. But one of the interesting things about this versus our downtown, and I was talking to Tony about this a while back, our downtown, I think we have about 250,000 or so visits a year to our downtown. We have about 65,000 people drive by this corner every day. And I think we've got such a cool downtown, but when you think about, I imagine places like, I use Huntsville, Texas. When people drive through Huntsville, Texas, you think of two things. Everybody's thinking of them. You think about the Sam Houston statue and the prison, right? Like that's what you drive through and you see from the highway. Whenever you drive through Denison, Texas, what do those 65,000 people think about every day? And I think we've got to give them a reason to stop. I think the way our development ties into downtown is we give them a reason to stop. We bring the coolness of downtown out to these restaurants and this development out here on 75, which is going to be a very visible development. And I think we give them a reason to stop, come in, experience Denison, and then, to your point, I do think this is a corridor into the heart of the city. I also think the growth west, the residential growth west, is going to greatly benefit from this as well. And I think this intersection over time I see becoming immensely important to being an entrance into the city and to giving people a reason to stop and to think about. When they think about Denison, they drive through here and they think about the things that they're able to see at this intersection. I think that's going to be critical.
Thank you. Any other questions of the applicant? We may have something else here.
Sure.
Thank you,
Thank
sir.
y'all.
Anyone else here to speak in favor of this request? Okay, anyone here to speak in opposition to this request? One more time, anybody here to speak? Yes, sir, would you like to come to the podium?
I did not fill out a card.
Well, I'll tell you what, you can come, give us your name and address, and you can fill out a card before you leave today, how's that? You can go ahead and speak, just do it before you leave today, thank you.
All right, my name is Bobby Roach. I live at 1409 South Lillis, which is, I have about 1.6 acres that would back up to this planned development. And right now, I'm against the development because I don't know what it's going to entail. I don't know enough about it to agree with it or disagree with it. I thought coming to this planning commission that I would understand more as you go forward and what y'all have decided to do, but I still don't know anything.
Well, first of all, we haven't decided anything at this point.
All right.
So.
But if you do decide, based on what I've seen so far, you know, it goes to another step.
It does.
Yes.
Yes, sir. It does go to another step. There's gonna be site plans that will have to be approved, and in that site plan, that's going to encompass architecture, the style of the buildings. We look at all of that.
I have another question. The 30 acres that was approved in 2021 on Crawford Street, there was another development, or an original development, it may be part of what he was discussing. What happened to that?
Well, I don't know, and really, we can't discuss
You can't discuss
that
it?
today. We're mainly here to
Was
discuss
that-
this
that was
particular
appro-
tract.
That was approved, though, was my understanding.
I'd like to
Do-
address that.
Oh, me? Oh.
Again?
Are you talking about the previous plan
Yes,
development? Yes. I think Mr. Poole mentioned that whenever he came up to the podium.
All right.
There was a previous plan development that was approved, I think in 2021, that allowed for duplex-type structures on the east side and commercial on the west side. During the time of having to wait to connect to, or the ability to connect to a sewer line in order to even start the development, he and his team, and correct me if I'm wrong, Forrest, he and his team decided to look into that plan development that they had already had it approved and try and maximize it and make it a little bit more fitting with the residential uses that are already in existence there, as well as just providing a better commercial product off of 75.
Do we not have a concept plan?
No, sir, I don't have a concept plan to provide to you.
All right, based on what I know so far, I'm against the plan, because I don't know what I'd be approving. I'll
Okay.
go on record with that.
Any
Thank you.
questions of our speaker? Anyone else? Yes, ma'am. I need you to come to the front.
I'm Peggy Gardner. I live at 2705 West Washington Street. And to empathize with you, sir, I appreciate the fact that Mr. Poole wants to transition from single-family houses into, as he goes deeper towards 75, so that this gentleman and these other neighbors just off Lillis are not sitting in the middle of, like, right next door to you. You don't, the duplex to the apartment complexes. And as long as he sticks with that great plan, I think it would be nice. I know changes are gonna come. We've all been there. But if they can do it nicely and appropriately, I think that would be nice. I would approve that as long as you stick with that, Mr. Poole. I think it's a good idea.
All right, thank you, ma'am. All right, anyone else? Last call. Maybe I shouldn't put it that way. All right, I'm gonna close the public hearing. And any discussion among the commission?
Mr. Chairman, if I can say, the transition aspect of those residential uses is not detailed within the plan development standards. And this Exhibit C that we have, where Tract 1 and Tract 2 accommodate those residential uses and the commercial apartment use. We don't have that concept plan that you mentioned, so if that transition use is something that the applicant desires to, or those are his intentions, it may be appropriate to include that somewhere within the development standards.
Because right now, any of the allowed
That's
uses
correct.
are allowed
That's why
anywhere
I'm
on the
saying
lot.
There are maximum, go ahead, I'm sorry.
We're a little bit, isn't it a little peculiar that we're actually approving a PD without a concept plan?
It was several discussions that we had. We've been having discussions with the applicant since around October, September over this. So we've been working with them, and they've been very accommodating, and we've gone back and forth on development standards. But tying particular locations or particular tracts to that residential use was something that the applicant was not in favor of. And so so staff took that as an opportunity to just beef up the standards that were written in. So whatever use was developed had a higher standard accommodating for it.
Okay. Okay. All right. Any others? Is that it? Discussion? I will entertain a motion, gentlemen.
You go for it. I move to recommend approval of the subject property being rezoned to Planned Development Overlay District for commercial single-family townhome, two-family, and multi-residential uses.
I'll second that motion.
All right, got a motion with a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right. Staff updates?
I have a couple updates for you. We, at council on Tuesday, this upcoming Tuesday, the 16th, I'll be doing some project updates that will come back to the commission, but I wanted to make you aware of them as well. We will be doing a zoning rewrite that was approved in our budget process, the funding for that, and so we are looking at an overall zoning ordinance rewrite. That typically takes about a year to 18 months or so. And so there will be a lot of public engagement, a lot of opportunities for the public to share their feelings. We'll be looking at some different ways of doing things from a planning standpoint. So we're excited about that, but I wanted to make you aware that we have that RFP ready to go, and we'll be sending that once council approves that. So just so you're aware, you'll all be included in those discussions, of course. So we'll be seeking a consultant to do that. Really want someone that's forward-thinking and brings some new ideas to Denison and how we're developing moving forward. We also have engaged a landscape architect to look at the Austin Avenue corridor. So we are doing a corridor study. If you recall, last year we did some inventories of Austin Avenue to see what was there, the kinds of businesses, what kind of conditional use permits they have. And so now we're looking at how to best utilize the actual pedestrian and vehicular space. So we're really looking at the quadrant of Austin Avenue and Highway 69 and how we can use, there's a lot of unused space there. So we want to make sure that we are incorporating the pedestrian safety issues that we know need to be addressed. It's a lot of space for people to be crossing and kids to be crossing to get to the schools and things like that. So that is taking place. We just kicked that off last week, the week before, I believe. So we'll be moving forward with some meetings and engaging TxDOT and the public for that as well. Also, the sign ordinance, which does not have to come before you, we'll be making some changes and amendments to that. That falls under the chief building official, so Kirk will be leading and being very well versed in the sign ordinance, but we are working through that as well, just so you're aware of that. And that's all.
Lots of things happening. All right, I think there is no other business to come before us, so I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I second.
And we have aye.
Aye.
All right, we stand adjourned at 10:56 a.m. Thank you.